Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible urban engineering feats on the planet. I mean, think about Mumbai for a second. It's a city cramming over 20 million people onto a narrow peninsula, and there is literally no room to grow outward. So in this explainer, we're going to see how a metropolis facing those kinds of extreme constraints managed to constantly reinvent itself through this brilliant concept known as a layered mobility system. This really isn't just a story about trains and roads. It's a story about a city that had to build its infrastructure layer by layer over decades just to survive. Because if you look at a map, Mumbai is essentially this narrow strip of land, completely hemmed in by water. You can't just draw a neat little circle around it and build suburban sprawl like you'd see in London or Tokyo. No way. When you're trapped by the Arabian Sea and your population is exploding, you've got to get creative. You can't sprawl outward, so you have to build over, under, and around. You literally have to stack your solutions. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We're going to explore how Mumbai stacked this infrastructure layer by layer. We'll start with that linear city constraint, then move through the first layer, the suburban rail, hit the road networks, check out the massive new sea and coast expansions, look at the metro integration, and finally, we'll wrap up by seeing how all of this actively moves economic value around the city. All right, part one, the linear city constraint. So because outward expansion was an absolute no-go, Mumbai had to evolve through what we call a layered mobility system. Think of it kind of like your computer's operating system, right? As the demands on the city skyrocket, a single network just doesn't have the processing power to handle it all anymore. But you can't just tear down the old system and start from scratch. Instead, urban planners have to sequentially add these multiple, overlapping transport networks. Each new transit layer acts as this crucial structural upgrade to keep the whole city functioning. Moving on to section 2, our first layer, the suburban rail. Now, for decades, this legendary suburban rail network has carried millions of daily commuters. And if you know anything about Mumbai, you've definitely heard of the infamous crush load, where these local trains are regularly packed with more than double the number of people they were actually built to hold. To handle this staggering volume, key railway junctions basically acted as the city's spine. You've got Dadar acting as the main interchange, Kurla linking the central and harbor lines, Andheri operating as the massive western hub, and Thane sitting there as the northern gateway. And because of the limited land, these rail lines totally dictated the city's initial northward expansion. They didn't just move people, they fundamentally defined the urban structure, dictating exactly where you could live and work. Section 3, the second layer, road networks. Because eventually, those rail lines just couldn't handle the immense pressure on their own. As the population kept booming, the city absolutely had to add its second layer. Now, anyone who's ever been stuck in legendary Mumbai traffic knows exactly what the stakes are here. Step 1 was adding parallel north-south highway capacity, primarily through the massive western and eastern express highways. But listen, just slapping down some highways wasn't going to cut it. Step 2 was building all those crucial connectors, flyovers, and underpasses, especially around notoriously congested spots like Worli and Haji Ali. And Step 3 was actively removing those critical choke points. That fundamentally changed the game. It slashed signal delays and suddenly allowed for much faster access into the major business districts. And it's super important to understand this timeline chronologically. Phase 1 gave us that initial northward sprawl via the rail. Phase 2 added the parallel road capacity. Next up, we'll get into phases 3 and 4. The key takeaway here is that these aren't competing systems. One isn't trying to replace the other. They are stacked solutions, and each one is engineered specifically to fix the bottlenecks left behind by the previous era. Which brings us to section 4, the third layer, sea and coast. So what do you do when your land routes have literally hit their absolute limit? Well, you take a massive leap right into the sea. First up, you have the coastal road, which creates this high-speed bypass right around the outside of South Mumbai, completely dodging the internal gridlock. Then you've got the MTHL, the Mumbai Trans Harbour Link. This is an absolute game changer. It connects South Mumbai directly across the water to Navi Mumbai. We are talking about taking a punishing 2-hour drive and literally slashing it down to about 20 minutes. It's incredible. It triggers a massive new axis for growth, heading right toward the upcoming international airport. And it doesn't even stop there. The water itself is now part of the mobility system, with ro-ro ferries and water taxis stepping up to create entirely new alternate corridors. All right, section 5, the fourth layer, metro integration. And this is where we see the real genius of the metro network. Again, it doesn't replace the century-old historic rail system, it actively fills in its gaps. See, for decades, the old constraint was the strict north-south sprawl.
You could move up and down the peninsula pretty easily, but moving across it, east to west, was a notorious nightmare. So what does the metro do? It acts like a needle and thread, seamlessly sewing the linear city together horizontally.
We already have operational lines setting the stage, but the upcoming network is where the real magic happens. Lines 3, 4, 6, and 2B aren't just random routes drawn on a map. They are precision targeted. They're going to connect formerly isolated, historically hard-to-reach residential neighborhoods directly to prime business hubs like BKC and CPZ. It is instantly untangling decades of east-west gridlock. Section 6. How connectivity moves value.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a story about engineering, it's an economic story. The crucial takeaway here is this. In Mumbai, connectivity doesn't just move people, it moves value. Every single time a flyover gets built, a sea link opens, or a new metro line launches, it's not just making a commute shorter. It acts as an economic engine, completely redefining what the word central even means for real estate and business hubs.
Let's actually trace this value migration for a second. With new metro and road access, the Bandra-Kurla complex, BKC, sees its position as a central financial hub become practically untouchable. Down south in Lower Parel, the coastal road and its connectors are massively boosting commercial value by cranking up that high-speed accessibility. Up in Thane, the integration of the new metro with the historic rail is turning it into a rapidly rising integrated hub. Across the water, Navi Mumbai is looking at a major growth trigger thanks to the MTHL and the new airport. And honestly, we've already seen this exact phenomenon play out. The Andheri corridor completely transformed the second Metro Line once started running. Every single one of these layers creates entirely new hubs of wealth.
So, what does this all mean for us? Ultimately, a layered city is a scalable city. Mumbai's true strength is that it doesn't depend on one single fragile network. It survives, it thrives, and it scales precisely because it relies on this massive, overlapping, integrated system of rail, roads, sea links, and the metro. That is where its incredible resilience comes from.
I want to leave you with this final thought. We've seen how the rail defined the north, how the roads opened up the east and west, and how the new sea links and metro are completely rewriting the map as we speak. So as these final massive metro lines fully integrate with the new high-speed sea links over the next few years, where will Mumbai's value migrate to next? Which quiet neighborhood today is destined to become the booming business hub of tomorrow? It's a huge question, and armed with an understanding of this layered mobility system, you are now uniquely equipped to figure it out. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.